Hello, people. Out here in our destroyed lanai, back in Florida. I've been back for a couple of weeks. I'm all sweaty and shit because I just chopped a stump out of the front lawn. We had a little bit of damage here. There's some people that are worse off. We had power the day that we got back, but I have finally finished a book, Skeletons on the Zahara, spelled with a Z. A True Story of Survival. This was a very good book. Not only have I been traveling, I was at the cabin, and I started this book, Hopes and Ashes, and it's called The Birth of Modern Times, 1929-1939. So that's what I've been doing. I've been doing the interwar years, but this book fucking sucks ass. This is the second attempt I've made to read this book. I got a little tiny bit of notes. I have the page marked, and who knows, maybe one of these days I will try it again. But it's a terrible book. Skeletons on the Zahara, on the other hand, was a fantastic book. It took me about 5 days to read it. This is the kind of thing I like. I've read a couple like this. These are some guys, these are American sailors on the brig Commerce, and I don't know, this guy is not a real great captain. He's supposed to be heading for the Canary Islands, and he runs right into Africa, runs right into the coast. And at this time, this is like the 1810s. They do reference Napoleon getting exiled to St. Helena, so it must be 1815, 1816. At this time, if you got shipwrecked on the coast of North Africa and you were taken prisoner by the Arabs, by the various Arabic tribes there, you did not get treated very well. You got turned into a slave. They just barely fed you. There was a couple of areas where there was a standing ransom for shipwrecked sailors. I mean, it happened a lot. So, the governments, France had some territories there. England had some territories there. The governments kept cash on hand to ransom these people. This is 319 pages, 204. This was published in 2004. I got 204 written down there. 2004 is what it is. This is written by Dean King, but the guy Riley, he was the captain of the Commerce. And there's another sailor on board the Commerce. His name is Robbins. They both published their memoirs, so this book is written from there. It would be pretty cool to get a hold of that memoir. Unlike many other books that tell about the voyage of a ship, this doesn't go into any of the food they brought. Most books spend pages and pages on how they load the ship, what they're going to eat, who's the purser. And right away I'm thinking about the Medusa, because the Medusa shipwrecked in the same area around the same time, and I thought, this fucking book ain't even going to mention the Medusa, but it does. It gets to page 85, and then it mentions the Medusa, and it mentions it several times after that. I gotta stay hydrated. It's not real hot today. It's a little bit rainy, but I sweated my ass off chopping out that palm tree. What it does go into very good is what they have to do in the desert, because these people they're sold into slavery. They kind of split up the crew, and it's funny because the crew, they'll make these trips through the desert, and they'll go to a well, and some of the crew will meet up with each other. They haven't seen each other for a month. They're just elated when they meet up with each other. uh, what they have to eat in the desert. Uh, the Bedouin and the desert tribes, they don't waste anything. If they slaughter a camel and they throw the entrails to the slaves for the slaves to eat, you do not wash out the food that's in there, the partially digested food. You just leave it in there and you cook it like that. These guys have to scavenge snails. They nearly starve to death. They go into, of course, the various wells and whether that water is good or whether that water is brackish. They get water, anything that is liquid, they ingest. Their own urine, camel urine, water from the hump inside the camel, etc. Yeah, Captain Riley published his memoirs, and this author does quote freely from the memoirs. Captain Riley and 3 other of his men end up getting bought by this guy. His name is Sidi Hamet. I'm probably mispronouncing that. But this guy treats them fairly well. He feeds them enough so that they regain their strength a little bit. He gives them a little bit of clothing because when they shipwreck, the first group of Arabs that capture them just rip their clothes off and they take their clothes. So they're out there in the desert sun, Europeans getting sunburnt. They nearly die from sun poisoning. Sidi Hamet ends up, Riley tells him, hey, if you get us to civilization, our government will ransom us. We'll give you blah, blah, blah amount of money. And Sidi Hamet says, okay, I'm going to do it. But if you're lying to me and I don't get that money, I'm going to cut your throat. And he actually doesn't, Riley actually doesn't know anybody in this town. But when they get there, Riley writes a letter. They take it to the English, I don't know, he's the attaché or whatever they call him of that town. He gets ransomed. It kind of ends happily ever after. Some of the guys you never hear from them again. So who knows how they end up perishing. Interesting little thing here is if these guys, these sailors, would have just converted to Islam, they would have no longer been slaves. They probably could have took an Arab wife, and they could have just lived there. None of them did that. Again, this is like 1816, 1817. None of them did that. I would have just did that to get the hell out of there because they nearly died. Anyways, I am into another book. Got a nice rain going on here in Florida. Thank you for watching.